You can go live.
All right.
Fitch-Rona EMS Commission meeting is called to order. Michelle, can you do a roll call?
I sure can. Strassman. Hilla.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Cronin.
Present.
Johnson. Miller. Durst.
Here.
Did you catch Miller? He's here. He just didn't.
Okay, got it. Durst.
Here.
Schnapp.
Here.
Lugenball.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
And Dostalek.
Not on tonight.
Okay.
All right.
Was there any public comment?
I did not have anything.
Well, then let's go into review and approval of the meeting minutes from February 18th, 2021. Are there any corrections, comments?
I make a motion to approve the minutes, what I saw.
I second, I agree.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, signify by
Aye.
saying aye
Aye.
or raise your hand. Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes as written are approved for the February 18th meeting. Chief Anderson, you want to go into the chief's report?
Are you seeing the
Sheriff
report
Johnson
there?
has just joined. Sorry.
Got you, Derek. Did you catch that, Michelle? Perfect. Can you see the PDF up there?
Yes.
Okay. So I was never sure whether it's sharing the screen or the application. So this is the report that was emailed out to you for April. As you can see, with 331 calls last month. So we're back climbing up. I will work on, because we are out at the Alliant Energy Center, when we do patient contacts out there, those do generate calls. Because we do write reports, and if it's just I'm feeling faint at the side of the car, they're fine. If we actually take them into the ambulance, check out a set of vital signs, a blood sugar, something like that, that does actually generate a call. So I am actually separating those calls out, or Jeff is helping me pull those out as well. I'm still going to report them, they generated calls, but when we start looking at trends and we have to start looking at budgeting based on call volume, those are really going to skew those numbers. So I'm pulling those out kind of after the fact thing. But there's 331 calls for last month, so we're climbing back up. Other numbers that you'll see there are pretty on par with what we have always what we have had. Our training this month, Christy put together a cardiac arrhythmias presentation for our own crews to go through, and then yesterday was Dr. Kim from our UW consortium did some pediatric respiratory emergencies for us this month, as well as Jeff is working through some high performance CPR stuff, trying to get back with our fire departments and do some coordinated CPR response things we've been doing. Today was actually our last COVID clinic at Promega, and we are done supporting that clinic. They may step up again in May to do some public or family stuff. We are still out at the Alliant Energy Center. That is Tuesday through Saturday. Last I knew, they were moving 55 to 7,500 people through there a week. So fortunately, it's actually shown to be fortunately a pretty boring job for them, just sitting there, and people have been pretty healthy and safe. Last one, Verona. The Verona School District was out vaccinating their staff. So we actually went out there on 2 Saturdays and just sat there while they vaccinated their staff, no issues. As well as the football games are back in business. So we've actually been out there 2 times already on football season nights, just standing by on those as well. So slowly getting back out into doing some community stuff. Reminder as we kind of venture into the truck stuff, I think it's going to slow back to normal here in the next few months, but so it's been 2 to 3 days a week. We've actually had all 5 trucks in service, which is pretty impressive, and I'm very proud of that. Fitch-Rona can actually support that mission and support the county and things that are going on around us. There's our calls by day of the week, calls by day of the hour, which you normally see there. Again, calls by municipality are pretty on par with what we do. the usual sick and false person thing that just keeps flopping back and forth. Jeff is still part of a county and works with Dane County Public Health and a county initiative to do some fall prevention stuff. So it would be really, right, COVID, as we know, is just throwing a monkey wrench into everything. So hopefully we can get back out there and start doing some fall prevention stuff and maybe bump that off the top of our list for a while. But that's where we are for March. Usual stuff, Station 2 does remain the busiest, although Verona seems like it's picking up again. As far as our aging report, that's the usual stuff. Everything is where it should be. Cash on hand is where it should be. I will continue to kind of share with you, again, the numbers are going to be a little bit skewed because we don't have the ability to separate out. We know hours wise when our staff goes to Promega and the Alliant Energy Center as far as overtime. So those are overtime situations. We pay them overtime. Remember, we are completely reimbursed for what we are charging for those services. Unfortunately, it's going to look on our financial report, it's going to look like it comes out of payroll because it does come out of payroll because we don't have the ability to separate out what they're doing at the Alliant Energy Center versus what they're doing for Fitch-Rona. So we can keep them, we will keep track of them behind the scenes. So we know we don't base payroll, based it on like previous year's usage. We actually have it on planned hours. So it shouldn't skew our payroll for future events, but you're going to see our payroll is going to kind of start to shoot through the roof here in the next couple months, knowing that we are reimbursed for those extra hours at 100%. Otherwise, our financials are sitting there, the usual great interest rates, everything is earning, made $5.58 on the retirement account. We haven't spent any money out of those assigned balances. Still, the ambulance is still, I talked with our rep, was texting back and forth with her the end of last week, talked with her about 2 weeks ago. Our truck is sitting in Ohio, waiting for the box to be built. So she said right now she didn't send me any pictures for me to share. I said next time we grab pictures, but we're still waiting for that to be delivered in June-ish. That'll take care of that anti-idle system that was being installed when she was there last week. As far as donations, so Quick Trip, I put in for a Quick Trip grant. Quick Trip actually donated $1,000 to us. I think I shared with you a couple months ago. An unfortunate situation. It was in December. Family from down by Belleville, New Glarus area had a special needs child who suffered a cardiac arrest. We were part of that resuscitation. Got circulation back and unfortunately died a few days later. But they made a sizable donation to Fitch-Rona. I shared that with you. I think it was last month. As well as I reached out to Quick Trip then. What we're trying to do, or what we have done, is actually upgraded our pediatric restraint equipment. I can bring pictures of that next time. That's one of the trainings we're doing this month to make sure everyone knows how to use that equipment. But what it does, it's called a PediMate for toddlers and above. Well, they're big enough to not fit in our seatbelts on our cot. It's essentially a supplemental system that straps onto the cot, has its own set of seat belts, but it truly only goes down to a toddler size use. The NeoMate is what it's called, actually goes down to 4 pounds. So it's a very similar system. It straps onto the cot, has a much, much smaller set of restraints, and then it actually has a big old head block on it. So if you put a little 4-pound child on there, right, who can't hold that big floppy head and it's flipping around, holds it up there, and we're able to restrain all the way down to a 4-pound child onto the cot. Right. Last thing we want is little projectile patients in the back of our ambulances should there be an epic crash. So with the money that Quick Trip was able to donate to us and the money that family donated to us, we were actually able to buy 5 of them, and we'll put them on every truck. It will replace what we currently have as a small bassinet, which is okay. 3 of them are approaching their 10 years old, so would need to be replaced. So this is actually
awesome.
Yeah, this is really good. We'll try to get something in the Verona Press and the Fitchburg Star to give that credit out there and let them know what we're doing. They will fold up and take up significantly less space on the ambulances that we're fighting for footage on there. So a huge shout out and a thank you to Quick Trip for supporting our community. And I forgot to upload the corrected spelling version on here, but that's Bob Bazell, right? Not with 2 Ks. It is fixed on the one I think I emailed out. Bob actually started as a volunteer back in 1990, or whatever, 23 years as I did that math, by 1998. So I started out as a volunteer, as an LT and a full-timer, so he's at 23 years this year. So good for him. And then comparables, we've seen those before. Any questions on this part of the report? Otherwise, I got a couple other things to share.
A quick question, Patrick. Of the increase for last month, how many of them were because of the COVID clinics? The 333?
I'll need to pull that number. So when we go to Promega, we don't create calls for those. We just treat those patients. So I will actually need to find exactly how many calls that the Alliant Energy Center generated. And I'll report that back to you next month.
Was it significant part of the increase or not?
I would probably say about 15 to 20. Yeah,
Okay.
I still would bet we did a solid 300 911 calls at least.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. As you can see, the previous year was a lot lower as well. So when we kind of look at percentages there, to me, as we start to see grow, when we start hitting 300 calls every month, we're growing.
Mhm.
I will find out what that number is next month so we can accurately report those.
Patrick, that 331, that's the highest of all time, isn't it?
It is. Yep. Again, probably 10, 15 of those came from the Alliant Energy Center standby. So they're kind of cheating numbers. They raised they were real. They were patient contacts, but they were patient contacts we would not have gotten otherwise had we not been at the Alliant Energy Center. I think we've transported 2 patients out of there. So again, sharing with the public at least the safety of that initial vaccination process of that initial vaccination. We've transported 2 people having true allergic reactions out of there, out of 7,700 a week. Any other questions on those? Otherwise, a couple other things I have to share with you. So we, over the course of last year, we were helped out with the county. The county I think it was every Tuesday, and it was every Tuesday actually. They were doing COVID testing out at area fire and EMS stations. So we helped, I think we did 3 or 4 of them or more between our stations. They were open to first responders, fire, EMS, police, medical examiner, sheriff's department to just come in and do drive-through testing, making it open for us. So the county actually put in for some reimbursement for that and received, I believe it was FEMA dollars to support those fundings. And they're actually now rolling that back down to reimburse agencies who hosted those clinics. So we'll actually get some funding back. That was just part of us as our commitment to helping out our service and other neighboring agencies. So those people were brought in on overtime for 4 hours to actually do the testing to support those clinics. So we're actually going to get some funds back from the county to help actually reimburse essentially Fitch-Rona for the cost of personnel for staffing those clinics. I don't know exactly what that number is offhand. We'll get that in the next couple months, but wanted to share that we're part of that cost is actually going to be given back to us. Jeff isn't on for you to share with him, but if you got an email last week from him saying you had a voicemail from Jeff, Jeff's account got hacked. Best we were able to understand, it only got sent to about 3,300 some people from Jeff's account. We got it within about 15 minutes, realized what was happening, and they were able to get in and change his password, but it sounds like the damage had already been done. We have worked with Patrick Mahoney, who's our IT guy, and the city of Verona spent a lot of money to prevent malware and spam and stuff from going out. So did work with them to try to figure out exactly. They believe they figured out how it happened. It was essentially the same password as a different social media account, and it just got in his system and ran. So making you aware of that, we got on it as soon as possible. Unfortunately, I think if you were not aware, Jeff's mother passed away last week, Sunday. So he was actually not in the office last week, kind of dealing with her issues, as well as getting phone calls every 5 minutes that he was sending out a voicemail that he didn't really send out. So he's still getting calls back every day. It went everywhere. So I actually finally put an out of office message on my phone because it was ringing every 5 minutes asking for Jeff. believe we have it isolated and have done some cybersecurity education to remind people of what to do and what not to do. It looked good, but as Jeff said, if you ever see an email from him that says warmest regards, it's not Jeff. Please don't open it. Beyond that, it moved, the Atlanta Energy stuff moved really quickly when we kind of moved that process through and signed that contract. But with that, we actually brought on 3 EMTs. Tiffany Lenz, Ryan Wild, and Mandy Hollis. Tiffany works with Edgerton, Ryan works out at Wanakee, and Mandy has worked out here in Cambridge. So 3 EMTs, they're actually helping us staff the special events at the Atlanta Energy Center. So this was kind of our first venture into special event staffing, as we have, I think, 5 or 6 events that we know are coming up this fall at the Atlanta or the Expo Center with the County Fair, the World Dairy Expo, the CrossFit Games, to use EMTs to actually help staff those events and supplement our staffing. They're not on our 911 trucks. We run 2 medics on our 911 truck. So at this point, they're actually just helping out with the special events. But wanted to share that we brought them on board and we're kind of trialing out. It seems to be actually working pretty good. They're out there. We always have at least 1 medic out there with them. So we are running as a single medic truck on some days at the Atlanta Energy Center just for the standby. But we did do that. So Jeff and I will also be tackling. I've been thinking about this for years, or keeping it in mind as we've been updating our policies to try to change anything that said paramedic or volunteer to just say provider, so that we don't have to go back and change all of our policies because they're still LTE employees. But we'll be going back through our policy book and may have to start changing a little bit of language to now address our non-paramedic responders. The audit, I don't know, Michelle, do you want to tell what you know about the audit? It's been a little frustrating.
A little. It's been going fine. We were able to get them everything that they needed. It was different this year because they did it virtually. So they sent us a list like they normally do of everything they need. But then as they went through it and had questions, there was a lot of emails going back and forth. And had they been in the office, it would have been easier. I would have been able to grab documents and show them things, stuff like that. So it's been a little bit different this year, and also a little bit longer. They've been, they spread out the time on going through everything. And when I checked with them last week to see when we would get our report, because some of the municipalities have been wondering, I was told that a draft was going to go to the next up the chain this week, probably. So I don't know if that means we'll get something next week or not, but it's just different this year for sure.
It's just been taking a little bit longer. Normally they come and do our presentation to you in April, and we still don't even have our draft. So
Right.
It's just been taking a little longer. As soon as we get that document, at least even in a draft form, we'll share it with the municipalities. We will share it with you and then invite them to come talk with you and kind of give them the rundown of the audit. They at least haven't let me know of any big red flags. So
No, me either. They just said they usually at the end have a few suggestions on a few tweaks we can make, but she didn't make it sound to me like there was any big issues at all.
sure. One of the other challenges, I think, is Michelle, we had a new auditor this year. So there was a lot of, as you know, EMS has it's just kind of its own nuances that we kind of had to explain some stuff that normally we haven't had to explain in the past.
Right.
Last thing I have as far as notes on here is I have a personnel issue that has come up. It's kind of the end of last week. It's a fluid situation that I need to bring up to the commission as a whole to kind of help resolve it and essentially develop a memorandum of understanding to potentially deal with some vacation time and sharing of vacation time or donating it kind of to somebody on a leave of absence who's running out of time. Again, in an open forum, that's about as much as I want to share with you all. So within the next week, probably sometime next week, I will shoot for sometime the following week. My guess is it should be pretty short, probably about a 15 to 20 minute meeting with the commission because it essentially developing an MOU. So I need your approval. My guess is you'll be fine with it. I have given at least a copy of it to Kyle to take a look at, because obviously it'll be with the union. But within the next 2 weeks, please watch your emails. I'll be trying to set up a date for essentially a special meeting to deal with the personnel issue. We'll have a closed session so that I can kind of explain to you what the personnel issue is. And then we'll open it back up just for approval of that MOU. More to come on that without trying to be too open. I didn't have all my ducks in a row enough to get it on this agenda. But it's time sensitive that it should require another meeting. So I'm just kind of giving you that heads up.
If it happens to be not next week, but the next week, would you have a call-in number as well? I'm heading south next Wednesday, but be happy to call in to make the quorum. If I don't have Wi-Fi en route, I would be happy to call in.
Sure. I believe Zoom will allow you to do that, as Derek is doing down here in the bottom corner.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I will email you the document, and then I'll give you the backstory, and then yeah, we should be. So I guess we can, if people want to look at their calendars when we get at the end of the meeting here, and we can if you want to set a date, otherwise I'll work on that through email. Last thing I have for the chief's report is the in-house operating budget. So this is the kind of the state of the finances here through the end of March. At the end of March, we didn't meet last month, so you didn't see it last month, but we're at 24. So this goes through March 31st. We're at 24.7% through the year. We've collected 23% of what our expectation is. So we're pretty close. We've received our municipal funds. As far as I said, ideally, all these numbers should be about 24%, with the exception of some of those things that we pay quarterly, annually, and half of a year. So our wages and salaries so far are right on track. But again, this was only through March, so we weren't high and heavy into our special events yet. Otherwise, all of these things are where they should be. The numbers that you got emailed this, so if you have any other questions, please let me know. And the big ones that will stand out in postage, things we buy when we need it. That's why that's up to 50% already. Ones that are already over that, 107% with radio equipment. So we switched over. So AT&T operates what's called FirstNet. FirstNet, if you haven't heard of it, is essentially a cellular system that is dedicated to first responders. It is its own bandwidth. So none of you, when you dial in your cell phone and call whoever you're calling, your phone will not access the FirstNet system. FirstNet is designed to be, in the case of a 9/11 or a mass disaster, mass casualty, that only police, fire, EMS, and responders' cell phones or cellular data systems are accessing that bandwidth. Jeff and I, and it's through AT&T. Previously, all of our accounts were through Verizon. So last fall, we met with the AT&T rep and did a trial, switched mine and Jeff's personal phone and our new response car, switched them over to FirstNet. The biggest challenge has kind of always been is the AT&T reception in at least that Fitchburg-Verona area. We weren't having any problems. Or said that, the cellular, it was just different. Losing calls was different, but it's been pretty solid in our response area, which is what we're primarily concerned about. I can't get reception in the back of the Piggly Wiggly or the Quick Trip in Cambridge, which is a little concerning, but I think I'm going to survive through those. So we did a trial there. Then after the first of the year, AT&T actually came out and offered up some rebates. So what we did is, unfortunately, the Cradle Point is the mobile router that's in our ambulances. We purchased those probably about 4 years ago. They were all too old to be upgraded, with the exception of one of them. So they would have needed to be replaced. And we talked about this last fall, is that it is switching for the mere fact of switching wasn't an option, and it was cost prohibitive. So they came out with a deal essentially for every cell phone line that we added to the system, we got a $200 credit, and then they were selling Cradle Points for $200. So what we did is, over the course of the last 3 months, we purchased new routers for all of our ambulances. So you're going to see next month, you're actually going to see a big check from AT&T where we purchased all of those routers. Over the next couple of months, when every one of our ambulances also has a cell phone in it. The cell phones were free. but because we were considered adding a line, we got the $200 credit. So 5 cell phones, 5 routers. We'll see a big check next month, and then we'll see a credit in about 2 months from now. The overall monthly cost for the plan was slightly less as well. I think overall it was probably about $15 less a month than what we were paying for Verizon. So over the course of over time, that cost will help pay. What we did have to pay out of pocket was for the antennas upgrades. That's why you see that at 107% there. We had to buy 5 brand new antennas to work with that new bandwidth. So that line item is already gone. But I felt that it was a good conversion over to a system that everything's on the same system, and now we're up on that emergency response system. Other one you're going to see there is that 122%. That's 122% over of a $700 line item. What that was is actually back in February we had to purchase more hoods for those respirators that we used for the kind of the highlight of COVID. We still have them. They're being used. We still have a handful of employees who will use them. They are being used a little less frequently now. We are able to get N95 masks. We're not seeing the 911 center is continuing to do screenings of COVID patients. They've changed the questions to be significantly less. There's not like a whole series anymore. It's essentially, have you been around somebody with COVID is what they ask. But so that's why that line item is spent. I took those hoods out of the safety equipment. So we still have them. COVID is still out there if you haven't been watching the news. So we still have that equipment, but we essentially got a different one that had a filter in it. The original ones we got did not have filters in them. So though it protected our providers, it didn't necessarily protect the patient. The new ones that we purchased with this ones here actually will protected the patient much better. So those are the only two that are, to me at least, jump out as being big line items. Is there anything anybody else sees on here that you saw that was of concern to you? That's what I got for a chief report. Terry, are you muted?
You guys can't read lips, huh? Yeah, I was muted. We'll move on to chair's reports. Personnel did not meet, but finance did. Mike, can you give us an update? Where?
Okay.
Oh, there's Mike. Okay.
Yes, we had a real fun time. Patrick's telling us in 2025 we need to buy 2 ambulances in 1 year. So that way we can start operating the 4th ambulance on a 12-hour shift. And it was pretty much unanimous that we did not want to buy 2 ambulances in 1 year. So we threw out several different options, such as 1 ambulance in 25, 6, and 7. Maybe keep the Patrick's personal vehicle in there. I like how I put Patrick's personal vehicle. Now this vehicle is 15 years old with 35,000 miles on it. So I said, push it to 2028. And nobody knows what's going to happen with this because Patrick's looking into his crystal ball because the town of Madison is going away and we're going to pick up around 400 calls a year with this, but we don't know when. And that means in 2025, we'd have to hire 6 more staff too. 5 will work. Patrick would like 6 to help with the 50 employees we will have in Fitch-Rona. So this is just something we're throwing out there, and we did not come up with any clear-cut answer, but don't have 2 ambulances in 1 year. After that, anything's up for interpretation. So when this gets closer, I think Patrick will be able to make a better guess at what's going to happen. But we will see what becomes of it. I said, let's just run 3 ambulances till we start getting more than 10 calls where people have to come into our district a month. Patrick said that's unresponsive. That's not responsible. And I said, how many times do we go to Mount Horeb? He agreed with me on that, but we will see what becomes of this, and I won't have to worry about it. Pat, anything else you guys want to throw in there? Be my guest.
So I think Mike did a phenomenal summary of what we did here. So essentially, as the committee chair's report was to not recommend the proposal that is in front of you and the one that was sent out, which is right. I had to put something on a piece of paper to present to you. So this was due to the city of Fitchburg last week. The CIP is due really early up there. So we probably should have talked about it last month, but right, it's kind of in a fluid state. This is fine. I have not yet met with the mayor. I believe my appointment is next week. And I can send them an updated copy of this. But as Mike said, just looking into the future of what those needs are. The suggestion I think we kind of came with and that I'm comfortable moving forward with. So I will send out an updated CIP for you. Is essentially we'll continue on with the process we've done, which is replacing an ambulance every 2 years. When the need arises and we meet that threshold for adding a 4th ambulance, when we hit that year, as opposed to selling one, we will keep one. So there's the additional costs that will be absorbed by the system will be operational. They won't be capital, because it'll just be adding the additional maintenance costs and insurance costs and another phone line, et cetera, for keeping a fleet of 6 versus the fleet of 5. So there's no huge CIP increase. It will be an operational increase. And that time is fluid. Best guesses with the information I have is that will be 2025. We won't really know until 2023, probably really more like 2024, what the impact of the acquisition of the town of Madison into Fitchburg will mean for EMS. I know anecdotally, listening to what the city of Madison is doing in the area that will eventually be Fitchburg, we will see 400 some calls in our first year with that area. So the next line item on there then is the review and action in the 2022 capital budget submission. That's the review. If there's people who are in that meeting that have any more questions that want me to explain more about this, I can do that. Otherwise, there's no real action. The document that, I guess the action would be changing it to what I'm telling you versus what you're seeing. Proceeding on with, it would have been the CIP that was submitted last year. The change to this one was the purchase of a 2nd ambulance in that same year.
So if I got it, essentially what you submitted, you would just remove the 2nd ambulance in 2025?
Yep.
And the document would be based on what the subcommittee recommended.
Yeah, it actually would be, that's what it would look like.
Okay, so do we need a motion then to approve the amended one for forwarding, or?
Probably, because this is the official capital improvement project I'm requesting from your municipalities. It looks like that. I just took that 2nd ambulance out of 2025.
But
Yes,
we're not putting it in 2026 like we kind of thought we would do if we did it.
I don't think, hearing discussions, I think from Kate and Connie, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you weren't really super supportive of buying an ambulance for 3 years in a row either. Was that, or what I believe, I think we should do this. I think we should go every 2 years. If in 2027, 2028, 2029, it looks like, you know what, this stretching things out to 12 years. I mean, I'll know now in 2027 when I have my first truck with 12 years on it, whether or not this is really a solid move. in which case we have another couple of years there to figure out what we want to do. And then we could do 3 years in a row if that's the way to go. Does that work?
We have a mitigation strategy for what if we're having problems?
Well, we did have that discussion as well, and and one of those was to increase our reserve, our operational reserve, by whatever that amount of dollars was, on the off chance. I really don't think, I would hope, right? We're not keeping trucks 15 years, 20 years, catastrophic engine failures. Though as much as I say that, Stoughton EMS just had one of those, and kind of exactly put them in that position I don't ever want to be in, of like, I don't have an ambulance, right? I have exactly the 3 that are running 911, and I don't have a spare to put them in, and I don't get a new one for 7 more months. I mean, it's about a 6 to 12 month build. For me to order one today, I will not see it for 9 months. So one of the discussions was to actually up our operational reserve to include, I don't know that you would necessarily designate those funds, or you truly just increase the operational reserve. Probably not going to be a catastrophic truck failure. My guess is it would be more of the stuff on the inside, like a $30,000 cardiac monitor, or an $18,000 power cot, or a $15,000 Lucas device. Those kinds of things that, all of a sudden at 12 years, just their electronics, their software, their computers, they just stop working. So truly, even a reserve of $30,000 would replace probably the most high dollar amount item that we have. So there was talk of increasing the reserve by X% to cover that cost. We didn't really come to a consensus on that.
What is our tolerance for the amount of money we pay to continue to fix something versus having a new ambulance? Is there one?
You
Medium?
don't have it yet.
Right. Fortunately, we haven't, because I think 10 years is a solid number. We haven't been there. And each truck, right, like your own personal vehicle, each truck just has its own nuances. If I could, if it didn't completely screw up a 10-year rotation plan, I would sell that 2015 ambulance in a heartbeat, right? There is something that lives in it that if something is going to break in it, it is that 2015 that just has a gremlin. And I would totally save my 10-year-old ambulance, which has been fairly reliable and a solid truck, but it screws everything up. So, we do have a repair replacement cost. So far, knock on wood, it's been pretty good, but like every vehicle, we do our maintenance, we do our oil changes, and still the oil pan breaks and costs $5,000 to fix.
Okay.
Well,
any other vehicle questions? Mike?
I will make a motion that we take the lower half of the screen, just so Patrick has something to work with the municipalities. So we approve the only one ambulance in 2025 instead of the 2.
And stretch them to 12 years.
And yeah, we can try that and see what becomes of it.
This is a living document. You're not truly committing to those funds today. You're not even committing to those funds in 5 years from now. This is a best guess.
So we've been doing 10 years and we want to stretch it to 12. Is there a reason why we didn't discuss 11?
If you start doing 11, then it doesn't divide beautifully between every other year. That's why.
You buy a new ambulance every other year. So you have to replace a new ambulance when you start doing that. So
yeah, that's why. There was a whole bunch I had little cars on my desk, and I'm like, all right, how do I, because one of the options was, what if I bought two ambulances every 3 years, similar to that, so it cost more, but we spaced them further apart. Well, then that reduced it to replacing an ambulance every 9 years. which is also an option, but now similar to what you were doing before, I'm asking for 400,000 every 3 years or 200,000 every 2 years, or the city of Fitchburg who does fleet management, who sets about 100,000 away every year over that cost. So, and it's a little bit of a pain because the 3 municipalities do things just a little bit different. So I have to adjust this document 3 different ways and try not to get it all screwed up. But we make it work. Mike had brought up in the finance meeting and said we would delay it to here because we were running out of time, is the bottom here. So the operational impact. So this also gets put on that radar, and Mike kind of addressed it or alluded to it a little bit in his previous comments. As I have shared in the last 2 years, right? When the town of Madison is acquired or becomes part of Fitchburg, roughly 400 calls a year. That puts us in 2025 to about 4,500 calls. And I've got industry standard, right? Looking at what we do, it's about 1,100 calls per truck-ish. It's not, as it kind of, I think it even says in the comments there, it's not necessarily a volume issue. Our current trucks can handle more volume. What will start to occur is we will start to have more calls at the same time. It's capacity. So as we saw 2 years ago, all 3 of our trucks are out, or all 2 of our trucks are out, and we're relying on the city of Madison. Previously it was the town of Madison came into our district just under 100 times a year. Mount Horeb, Middleton, our neighbors are coming in to help us out. That's when we need to start looking at, we need more trucks internally. And that's when I talked about the peak hours truck, right? From 8 a.m. and you go back and look at the chief's report, right? When we see those spikes, that's where we need that truck. 5 people, hiring 5 people will staff that truck 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. I am asking for 6. As Mike had said, as I explained earlier, by the time I had 5 people to our current staff of 21, a 4th truck is going to mean I need to hire more LTE staff. So we are now up to about 50 staff, combination of full-time and part-time, 50 staff members who are managed by myself and Jeff and Michelle. So that's 2 full-timers and a part-time office manager managing 50 people. That's a lot. So what I'm asking for in 2025 is another level of middle management, which is that 6th person. To me, I think we have a couple different options there. I brought this up in our annual report in the past. One of them could be hiring a deputy chief. Right? That person sits in the office, doesn't run out of truck. Another option is to actually to create a kind of a hybrid. So we have our lieutenants now who do station duties. They're still limited on what they can do because they're still riding the truck. Right, so when they're not on calls and if it's a slow day, they're able to get their work done. When it's a busy day, then we run into some challenges of them being able to work because they're staff, they're on the truck, they are part of the union. They also get vacation time, right? They get paid time off, and when they're gone for 2 weeks, right now they're each assigned to a station, right? So when they're gone, their fellow lieutenants who are also only working 2 days a week need to kind of manage supplies and maintenance and communications at those other stations. If both of them are gone, we have one person trying to manage 3 stations, right? But they're on the ambulance, so they don't have the ability to move between the stations and kind of manage things. So one of the proposals here is actually to change that position a little bit and give them some sort of hybrid schedule that puts them, say, maybe on the truck 1 day a week, and then gives them 2 or 3 other days during the week to accomplish those tasks that are going to continue to grow, such as training and managing supplies, and give them the ability then to move throughout the district to assist in a lot of the operational stuff that Jeff and I have to do, because we have the ability to move through the district. So that's why I'm asking for 6. Again, this is shooting, well, now 4 years out. This is a living document. If we find out in 2023, 2024, we're not there in volume, these numbers are actually going to, obviously I'm not going to ask for people I don't need. So we can continue to push those down, but I think it needs to be on somebody's radar that we're going to start to hit capacity here in about 5 to 6 years. That answered the question you had earlier, Mike?
Yep.
Ish, sort of.
Well, it's we got to start somewhere. So let's send this document off and who knows what it's gonna look like in 5 years or 3 years, but we have to start somewhere.
And then
And
you-
looking ahead, being progressive thinking here, or smart thinking, whatever you want to call it here,
Sure.
is better than not. So I make a motion that we send this on to the municipalities.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Is there any more
of
discussion?
approval? Signify saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the capital improvement project for submission as modified is approved for forwarding to the municipalities. Let's move on to review and approval of accounts payable. I had one question, Patrick. I noticed there was about 23,000. I was curious what that was for.
Remember who it was to?
Yeah, it was in town of Verona.
Yes. Every year in the fall, each municipality is given money from, so this is outside of the money that's given directly to us as, we call it that FAP funds, that funding assistance program. Every year, it was unbeknownst to me, actually the municipalities actually get additional state aid to help pay for your EMS service. Again, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know I didn't know the municipalities got those funds. With the changeover of personnel at the town of Verona, they also didn't know they were giving those funds, and they graciously gave us that check. And I graciously accepted it and deposited it while we figured out
And now
why
you're
we got.
sending it back.
Yes, yay,
Okay.
happy Fitch-Rona. Yes, happy birthday to Fitch-Rona. So we just put it, we deposited it while we tried to figure out, we've never seen this money before. Once we figured out that this is what it was for, and I reached out and told Sarah, thank you very much for the check. I'm assuming you want it back. She said, yes, please. So that is what that is what that funding is for.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Two other things I noted in there, just in case anybody's looking at them as red flags. So you're going to see some increased cost to the Dane County Treasurer. There's one, I think on this one is like for $500. That's actually for our annual subscription for our MDT or our dispatching software. You're going to see some of them start to creep up into the thousands of dollars. That is because of the vending machine process that I explained a few months ago, that we get our medications now through the vending machines at the hospitals as part of a larger buying group through the county. So the county bills us for those. So that is why you're still going to see a bill from Meritor. We still get our controlled substances and a handful of things that are are unique to Fitch-Rona. We get them in our Fitch-Rona way medications. So the Meritor bill will be much smaller. That will be offset by a larger bill to Dane County. That's it. That's what I got. Any other checks, questions?
If not, is there a motion to approve the accounts payable checks as submitted?
Mike so moves.
Second?
Second.
All in
Derek,
favor?
second.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the accounts payable checks are approved. Let's move on to the government accounting.
Oh, Gatsby. Yep. Let me pull that up. Right. If you remember, I bring this up every month. Part of the government accountability accounting standards board says when you identify those reserve accounts, you need to specifically say we're putting this money in a reserve account. So when those funds change, as that WISC account does, the sick time payout does every single month, when we get a whole $5 in interest, we need to renew this. So that is what this says. The only number that was updated in there then was the sick leave liability. But it's put in here as a resolution that you're designating those accounts to a specific fund. Just need the motions.
Okay, motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the
Thank
gas.
you.
I'll second.
All in favor of approval?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the GASB 54 revisions as submitted are approved. Patrick, discussion of the MOU?
Sure. So revisiting, if you remember the MOU, the emergency sick leave that we put into place a year ago, that provided the specific, the 96 hours of paid sick time for employees who had COVID issues. That memorandum went through the end of the year. We still had some issues with COVID. We met in January and extended it through the end of March. It has since expired again. So bringing it back to this group, I guess with the ask on behalf of the employees, and I think it's a good idea to extend this one more time to the end of June. The argument being we haven't had anybody, knock on wood, haven't had anybody had to use it yet this year. All of the employees for us, as I have shared, who wanted the vaccination have been vaccinated. However, they still have families and children who have not. The report we got from Dane County Public Health today is the recent, the numbers in Dane County, they're not skyrocketing, but they are going on the back up direction, with the new population being kids. Assumption is they're back in school and they're engaging with each other, and social events are going back on. Fortunately, kids are much more resilient to this than most of us. So there hasn't been hospitalizations haven't risen a lot. But so then the ask was, most people with families, there's still the potential that this could get used. So looking to see if you are okay, if the use group is okay, extending this 96 hours back from April 1. I didn't change the hour. I didn't change the language in here, but it would be April 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2021.
I think since it hasn't been, it doesn't sound like it's been abused, not that anybody would abuse it, but I have no problems with that, especially since we're still working on getting people immunized. We just lost the J&J.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea too.
Yeah, this would put us in line with the city of Verona. When we reapproved for the city, we set an end date of June 30th as well. So I think that's appropriate.
Any concerns with increasing it? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and call for
I'll make
to
a motion
approve.
that we continue it until the end of June.
Second.
Aye.
Right?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nobody's opposed, so the MOU with Local 311 will be extended to, what was it, June, end of June?
June 30th, yep.
June 30th. So you'll update it, and it's got to do all the
Yeah.
signatories, and okay.
I will update it and email it to you. We'll handle it like we did last time. If you want to print it off and slide it under the door of the station, and
I'm fully vaccinated now, so I can wear a mask and bring it in, so no problem.
your wife's allowing you out in public. Excellent. So I will change this and get this off to you soon. And once you and I sign it, we'll get it off to Kyle and the union. Thank you. The employees, thank you. It's a nice kind of buffer to have out there.
Did we just freeze up?
I'm here. I see you moving, Mike. I think Terry might be frozen.
Looks like it.
Only Terry.
Oh, we just blinked.
He moved now.
Hey, Terry, you were froze.
Yeah, I know. I keep getting a message that I have a kind of a shaky connection, so I don't know what. I have to get on Spectrum and have them find out what's cooking. So, okay, we're Want to talk about the MOU? Was it from the
Yep.
municipalities?
Yep, it passed.
So everybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the municipalities. Yep. So give me a minute here. It looks like this is unfortunately one of the documents I did not copy over into to my hard drive here. So I need to pull up the one we've been working with. Sorry about that. Searching for, what am I looking for? All right, and sorry about that. We can close some screens here and try not to disconnect. So the through all the feedback, look at the, so this is what I got from the municipalities. Nobody had any huge issues with it. I will give you the highlights of what we had, and then if you're all okay with it, I will send out to you the document that the final document. I'm working with the wrong version here. Apologize. The right out the gate, the administrative rule that the intergovernmental agreement addresses is outdated. That was actually also changed about 20 some years ago. So we will I will fix that to the correct administrative statute that it refers to. The one of the concerns that came from the city of Fitchburg was just that I took out a lot of the duties of the secretary because we have policy that I gave them all to Jeff. Keeping those in there, keeping minutes, as well as posting notices and the custodian of the record, potentially leaving them in there, but just adding in there the or designee, which means we can just pass that off to the deputy chief, or Michelle writes them, I review them, and we post them, but at least that there's somebody in writing who is legally responsible for minutes. I'm okay with that. Is there any discussion on that? It's just putting that job description back in there. None of these duties had issues. Mike, do you want to expand a little bit on the annual meeting discussion that the town had?
Okay, at the annual meeting, generally the town of Verona is the only one that has a quorum there. So the annual meeting the district open to the public shall be held, I'm going to say should be held in October, should be like the third Thursday, but make it less strong in this case. And what do we got here for the ratification of it here? Where did we go with this? No, we gotta find it. Okay. The language shall adopt the budget due to lack of quorum. Okay, so we gotta make it, let's see here. The budget for succeeding fine. Okay, because at the annual meeting, most guys always go back to their municipalities because they don't have a quorum, so they can't legally vote on it. We have to put this in there so they, let's see, district may transact. The exact date to the hour of the meeting shall be determined by the commissions. Where was it? I can't see. What we got to put in here is basically the meeting. If you can't approve it at the meeting, we got to get the language in there. it should be approved at the following meeting by the municipality for whatever reason.
Which is in there. Has to deal down here.
Well, instead of shall, on the opening sentence, it should be may. Put may. You put it in as may, because that way it may be approved at the annual meeting, but it might not be. So instead of shall, may.
Well, that's just saying when the annual meeting shall be
Right.
every October.
I think it was specific to, because historically, and again, I'm running into the same thing as Mike. I know the language is in there that the budgetary process is still subject to each municipality's budgetary process, meaning that though we shall approve the budget review process at the annual meeting here, it is largely symbolic because it has to go back to each municipalities for a vote at each municipal council.
Well,
so I think the suggestion was to
at one
get rid
point
of
in
shall
time, we used
adopt.
to have a quorum at these things, so they could approve it at the annual meeting, but that's kind of went away.
Sure.
You can't get enough people to show up.
So something to the extent at which governing bodies of the municipalities should review. And I apologize for not getting any language in there. If somebody's got some ideas, and Michelle can jot them down. Essentially, it's a budget presentation, which I do at each municipality anyway.
Yep, you do.
Or if you want to just say an annual meeting shall be open to the public and held in October of every year.
That would work.
That's
by
good.
me.
And then the budget, then it doesn't address the budget process or the language that.
When it has to.
Yeah, I apologize for. It talks about operating practices. It talks about expenditures, talks about the capital improvement.
And we want to get to your last one here, where basically Patrick had right at the very end, if we don't review this every 10 years, the district shall be terminated or something like that. We should put in there something along the lines of.
There it is, the termination of district. It's up one.
Yeah, that's not what he's talking about. That's actually the get out clause. It's the 9.0 here where, again,
Term.
Valerie had issues with this as well, where we put in I think I changed it to may. The concern is it was vague enough that you could read in there if one of the municipalities said we're not in 10 years from now, I got an issue with this and we're not going to renew it, that truly, you could interpret that on December 31st, Fitch-Rona goes away because the intergovernmental agreement doesn't exist anymore. I think most municipalities had some issues with that language. So the option would be to put in a should be reviewed every 10 years or to just get rid of it. And then the agreement, as it previously said, is amended from time to time and shall remain in full force and effect until the district is terminated. So it continues on in perpetuity until somebody says we have an issue with it.
Well,
and we just make it a point to review it every 10 years.
I think it should be reviewed, because what are we now, 18 years or 22 years since the last time we did it?
22 years, but it's easy enough to bring up every 10 years without having it in writing.
Yeah, but
then you're signing a document that lives in perpetuity.
Yeah, don't have a problem as long as we get it. So if we don't do it in 10 years, we dissolve it or whatever was going on in the one. But other than that, that's what we had a problem with on it.
And I can dig in there. Is there, I don't know that anybody's got discussion on that. Is there any other discussion on the budget? And I apologize for not knowing. I know it was in there at one point of that. It was still subject to the budget is still subject to your own local governing body.
I don't,
so-
I saw that one point, but I don't remember where it was. And
Yeah,
this came out quite a while ago when I read it.
sure. So is there any other discussion about that annual meeting to just hold an annual meeting where business of the district may be transacted? And even then, there's, I don't want to say there's never been quorum. There's always a quorum the year I ask for $9 million for for another ambulance and 9 new people, but lots of people show up.
The annual meeting of the district.
Unless I
Shall
can
may.
throw some new language in the spirit of this and send it back. There is no rush to get this done.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, make this annual meeting not be so, say what we do at the annual meeting.
Okay.
And just send it out so it is just for we quit voting on them for the most part. It used to be, heck, one year there were fights going on in Fitchburg.
Yeah.
I think that was 2002 or 3. Oh, they were going at it big time.
So I think that's a fine approach. I will edit that language there to reflect really what occurs and make sure I find in there that language that says it's still subject to your local municipal process, but really the annual meeting then is for presentation and review of still presentation of the budget, review of the budget, other district business, but that nothing really happens.
Or you could put at the very end, and possible exceptions, accepting the budget. Possible.
You can just leave it out. It's symbolic.
Yeah.
But those are the only things that were brought up for me.
So
So
next steps, you want to just update it and bring it back to the next meeting then?
yes,
There's no big rush on it, I guess.
Well,
no,
send it off to the municipalities again and let them see your new changes. And then they'll probably agree to it and you guys can get it back and then it will be approved in a month or two, or it'll take a couple
Sure.
more months.
so I will make the changes and bring it back to this board, back to the commission next month. If you're okay with it, then we'll send it back out for a resolutions.
Sounds good.
Work?
I have a question on that concerning the voting. It talks about the municipalities shall be approved unanimously. What if it isn't approved unanimously?
Then it's back to the drawing table. That's one of the catches that I know it had come out of some of the discussions over the last handful of years, is the idea that the Senate and the Assembly, that although it's a 50, 45, and 5% division of services and payment, that there's equal vote at this meeting. There is equal vote at this meeting, but it has to be unanimous. So there's always this, the city and the town of Verona can't actually gang up on the Fitchburg and push it through. All 3 municipalities have to agree on it. If they don't agree on it, then the commission and the membership here comes back to the table and figures it out until there's a unanimous vote.
Understood.
Hopefully that's not in my time here, because that's ugly.
See, I keep getting kicked out, so if you,
Turn your camera off, Terry.
Okay, I'll try that. There we go. See if that helps.
All right. No, any further discussion?
Okay.
We don't even need a motion on this because you're gonna change it and send
No.
it back.
Yeah,
Yeah, we just had the discussion. That's the discussion, and the action is to bring it back next month.
Okay.
okay, I want to move on to the Madison College agreement.
Sure. And this is surely there's no action on this as well. It's just discussion. I emailed this document out to you to take a look at it as well, but I wanted to share kind of something that's exciting. We're probably one step past the initial stages for you to take a look at this. So Fitch-Rona, Sun Prairie, and Madison College, as we all continue to look at equity and inclusion in our career. So Madison College has its own little committee. Each department has a committee on equity and inclusion to include fire and EMS. So they have been working with in a nutshell, they have high school students that they run through first responder classes, fire classes, and EMT classes, and looking at how we get those people of color and women and underrepresented entities into a career in EMS. We're looking specifically, obviously, EMS. Some statistics for you to look at there. So we're trying to do a pilot program, and I'm working with Chief Goff out in Sun Prairie of identifying students with a solid, with an interest in EMS and an introduction into EMS through those high school level programs, and getting them internships at one or both of our agencies. We are very, 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 very close in service and size, and everything is very compatible. In a perfect world, what this looks like is a student is identified in the spring out of one of these high school programs. They are partnered. We don't know the number yet, but at least we'll just talk of one at this point. One of those students will be identified. They will come to Fitch-Rona. One of those students will go to Sun Prairie. The student becomes ours for 2 years. In those 2 years, their first year, they take their EMT class. While they're taking their EMT class, they're actually taking, essentially over the 2 years, they're becoming a paramedic. They're taking the 2-year paramedic associate degree program at METC. They're with us. They are working with us for 2 years. In that first year, they're an EMT. They're working with us as an EMT. They're running with us as an EMT on our truck, not as a lone responder, but I would put them on our truck as a third. We partner them up with one or a handful of people who are they mentored at Fitch-Rona. The other partnership and mentorship that occurs at the college. That is a really important part of this program as we look at inclusion and diversity, of making sure that they have somebody who can relate to them, right? We're not bringing on any pasty white, blonde hair, blue eyed Norwegian underprivileged people, right? I can't relate. So we're making sure that they have a partner at the college who they are working with and probably have been since their entrance into the program, can stay in contact with the mentoring of issues and counseling and partnership there, as well as what's going on at Fitch-Rona. So we're kind of covering all of our bases and making sure that they're having a good experience that is moving forward. Over their first year, they're running with us as an EMT. They're taking all their gen eds. The second year of their program is they're actually then in the paramedic program, continuing as we are, again, as that mentorship and partnership is occurring for that second year. Once that is done, one of the things we've always kind of got hung up with was, right, I can't guarantee them a job. I can bring them as an LTE, but I can't bring them on as a full-timer. What I was told when we've had a couple of discussions with this through the college was, don't worry about it. MATC will help find them a job. What we are doing, though, is we are help facilitating the equity and inclusion of our career field. Maybe they'll come to Fitch-Rona. Maybe I'll have an opening. Maybe I can bring them on board. If I can't, my career field has another highly trained person who is going to help to diversify our field. That's what this looks like in the dream world. That timeline changes a little bit. One of the challenges we look at is always funding. The college, they're not going to guarantee us, but the college, when we brought up, right, how is their tuition going to get paid for? Again, the college is saying, don't worry about it. We will find them tuition. Between the MATC Foundation, through grants, through donations, they believe they will get tuition paid for. The ask from us, right, is the organization and the support, the sponsorship, the mentorship, and some sort of paid internship of those students. So this is where, and I'm really truly just introducing this to you today, with the idea of when we start talking about the budget in a couple months from now, that paramedic internship program that we dropped off of our 2021 budget, it will come back now next year and directly be filling this line item here. Playing with a bunch of numbers, I would like to do exactly, I would like to partner up and do something very similar to what Sun Prairie is doing. We aren't exactly matching up operationally how we want to do this. So I don't know, we're going to come into I think we'll get something that'll work. They'll get something that work. It's not going to look the same, but it will be functional. Just because, again, proceeding down different pathways, but letting you know, right, starting in June, that line item will come back, and it will come back probably higher than what it was previously, with trying to maintain, right, responsible financial. I get if I'm going to ask you for $50,000, you're going to say that's fine. Where are you going to take it from and some other line item? And I understand that. So I'm just explaining to you what we're trying to do right now. In the process of trying to connect with, we just keep missing each other's phone calls over the last 2 weeks here, the Urban League in the city of Madison. The Dr. I think it's Ray Allen is the director of workforce development out there. So trying to get some consultation with him to see if he can actually provide me with some guidance as well of how we come up with a funding source for us to help pay this internship. Right now, I think we can do it at a minimal level. I'd like to see it be higher, right? I don't know that it will ever be, I mean, it's an internship. It's not a livable wage, but it needs to be something more than a right, $9.95 cooking fries. So any questions on this? Again, the ask right now is not for funding. I'm making you aware of what we're trying to do.
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds great.
Excellent. I will very much keep you informed of how that progresses. They have one student identified from the fall. I talked with Chief Goff today because I took our funding out of 2021 and kind of a couple other operational issues. I essentially said, that student is yours. Let Sun Prairie run with it and see how you can screw it up, and I'll learn from his lessons. That will make ours work. I did say, right, if push came to shove, because he's not ready, he believes he's ready to flip the switch. He still has to, probably cross some T's and dot some I's. Is that if push came to shove and it didn't work out at Sun Prairie, we will gladly take that student here and we'll figure out. I think as Kate was asking for options for those reserve funds, I think that would be a good. It's not a huge lift because it's part of the. It would probably be only for about 4 months of the year. I would absolutely bring it back to this group to say those reserve funds could help sponsor that program until we get it back into a budget. But we'll see what happens with that. Again, I will keep you informed before that decision gets made. But Chief Goff is going to most likely going to take that first student this first year. Other issues become kind of like I talked about, right? The sustainability of it. How do we pay them in an internship if we only take that's one student for 2 years? How many students could we really could take more than that? What is our commitment? Remember that every one of those students, there's a financial commitment to that. So I'll bring it up here in June when we talk about our regular budget. Perfect. You still with us, Terry?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I keep getting kicked out, so you may have to close the meeting without me. 10 seconds.
We're getting close.
We're so close.
Next item, we had discussion about in-person versus virtual. That was supposed to be a standing agenda item for a while, I guess.
From what I'm aware, none of the municipalities municipalities are back face to face yet. I read it in the Verona Press today, right? The city council in Verona is talking about it. And Scott from Fact TV, he was kind of telling us that Pittsburgh may consider a soft reopening kind of thing, but it still doesn't look like anybody's talking about anything till June or later.
So we'll just keep it on for future discussion then.
Okay, so we'll commit to next month being a Zoom as well.
Zoom as well. And I'll try to find a better place for a better connection, or call in on my phone, I guess. Any other business?
Only other business I have, if you weren't aware, Mike, this is Mike's last meeting with us.
Yes,
How many years, Mike?
10.
10 years.
Oh, wow.
So we're losing some historical perspective on things that go on here. So thank you so very much from the staff here at Fitch-Rona for supporting us for 10 years.
Now, that's
a lot.
what you get when you're a loser.
We're gonna miss you, Mike.
Thanks for your service, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
No problems.
Get your Thursday nights back.
Hate to see you go.
Oh, it's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's a real learning experience, and I think everybody that does it will say you learn a lot of different things, and you learn the nuts and bolts of how things work. And now Patrick's going to have a doctor to deal with.
Yeah, I have not heard from Mark about who he is appointing. Well,
Well, he's kind of getting my spot, so.
okay.
Patrick, did
Dave,
you want to look at calendars for the added meeting
Yeah, good idea.
while we're all here?
So the
Mike, you can still come to the meetings and heckle us.
I am telling you that Deputy Chief Dostolik already today said, when is the next farm extrication? And he would be more than happy to bring it up at every single meeting until that training occurred on your behalf.
Well, all I got to do is get your guys to show up. That's the next problem.
I guess the question would be the 22nd. If Thursday nights seem to work okay, I think I can have my ducks in a row. At least something for you to review. I have chatted with Kyle. He's given me his feedback. I've kind of done a lot of research about what's going on with our neighboring communities and where I want to go with it. I could probably have something for you by next week, Thursday. I would like to make this happen within the next 2 weeks. It's kind of the timeline we're on.
You got a tentative time? 6 o'clock or 7?
What works for you? And it doesn't have to be as late as 6 o'clock. It doesn't have to be as late as 7 if 6:30. And I guess, is there any issues with or favorites for the next 2 Thursdays?
I would prefer either 5:30 or 7.
Okay.
The 6 o'clock hour is not great for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do next week, but the following week I'm gone.
So if I propose the 22nd, a week from today at 7 p.m., would we have enough people?
That works
Yes.
for me.
I can make it.
that, Yep.
I think I'm the only one that's questionable, and I'll try to make it. I just don't know where I'll be, you know. at that
Sure.
time.
Are
Sure.
you going to send out information in advance of this? Or
Yes,
tell
I
'em?
will. Yep. I will send. I will send out a copy of the MOU for you to take a look at, and then again, it'll be labeled as a special meeting. We'll go into session. We'll go into closed session so I can talk about a personnel issue, and then because it's an MOU, right? It's sort of kind of negotiations, and then we'll open it back up for the official discussion on it. I really don't foresee lasting more than about half an hour.
Okay.
So it looks like I didn't have anybody who was a no for next week, Thursday. Was that correct?
Maybe me. I'm the only one that it's
No.
possible, but I should be, I'm traveling, so I should be there by then.
Okay. Shannon, would that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Okay. So let's plan on next week, Thursday at 7 o'clock. I will reach back out to Scott. I'm sure we had me in his ear listening. It's a closed session. I don't know how much of a streaming of a closed session makes it worth your time to record. But I'll make sure that we're in compliance with local, with open meeting laws, and at least allow the access for people to get in who want to get in. But I will send something out for you for next week, Thursday.
Okay, sounds
Great.
good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
for all the time.
Thanks, Patrick.
You're welcome. Terry, last one's yours. Motion, any other business or any other business?
Hey, I want to make a motion to adjourn. Last
I'll
one.
second.
Terry probably died on us again.
I think
Okay,
it falls-
we are adjourned. Thanks for
Bye.
your service, Mike.
Yep, thank you.
Mike.
This has
Happy
been fun.
trails to you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike,
Yeah.
take care.